Hey, I'm Adam Melchor. I'm hanging out with Rob on Front Row Live, and hope you enjoy the interview.
I first heard about your music through real estate back in, I don't know, 2017, 2018, I think is when you dropped it. And then I just got reintroduced to your music in December when Darren had mentioned that you were signing to Warner. So
Yeah.
congratulations with the signing. And before we jump into your music, like how did this kind of happen to you? Did your hotline have anything to do with this? Like how did this signing come about?
Oh man. Well, first off, thank you. I guess the signing sort of came about, just years, actually probably since real estate came out, just like basically years of playing shows and meeting people and writing songs with people. And then actually through the hotline, I was really getting used to like making my own music and, really producing myself just because out of necessity, nobody was really, a lot of times I would rely on like other people to produce things or, just to collaborate on that level. But man, obviously nobody was really hanging out too much. So I just took to YouTube for about 6 weeks and just like basically went back to school, the school of YouTube, and learned how to do everything so I could really like articulate in a recording like what I wanted to sound like, and through then I started sending those demos around to people and, through the hotline and just like, through my friends and stuff, and, just started talking to people, and Warner was just really stoked about it. And, it was the right fit. So I feel very, very lucky to have that happen, during this pretty uncertain time. So I feel very
That's
lucky.
That's very true. I did kind of notice that, throughout this past year that, it's obviously it's forced a lot of us to get even more creative than we thought we could be. But at the same time, I've noticed a big list of new signings of artists being discovered, whether it be YouTube, whether it be TikTok. So like the fact that this finally happened for you now that after you've kind of released so much music every Sunday for the last year, how different is it now that this label is behind you and you have this team behind you? Do you feel like now you can maximize the amount of music that you're creating, or do you feel like now it's time for you to kind of like relax and treat each song with some time and carefully before you kind of move on to the next?
Yeah, well, it's a good point. It's a fair like point of thinking. In my case, though, I think that they were more so like, we love what you're doing now. We'd love if you were keep doing it, just stay yourself, which is the big reason why I signed with them. They were very much like, look, we are not asking you to do anything you don't want to do, and like we just like what you're doing. And like you said, a lot of people are getting signed via TikTok, and I think right now recordings are they were sort of on, for a while on the back end of the music industry, sort of like, okay, well, this is just sort of promotions for the shows and stuff like that. And this thing and the merch and stuff. And now that people aren't really, able to go to shows, and in some cases, like, unfortunately not able to afford merch, the only sort of, thing people can, really help support an artist is to just listen to the recording of it. So there's almost like a higher value in recordings in a time like a and stuff. And yeah, I just feel really lucky. And also to be honest, I didn't really do the hotline to like get a record deal or anything. I did it because it is the way to connect to my fans without shows. I was always on the
Right.
road, and to be able to like actually just have that personal connection. I mean, the number that I'm using, like, people can text back and stuff, and just hearing like, I'll send a song to someone and be like, oh yeah, I showed this to my dad and he finally likes the music I listen to. And it's just like, oh, sick. Like, this is the most wholesome shit ever. You know what I mean? Like, that's the best thing in the world. So, it's the same things that people would say to you after a show when you meet fans. And that's the reason why I do it anyway. And I think I'm just going to just keep doing it as long as my brain can handle it. There's the hotline has just been that for me, to just keep continually creating, but also just to connect with people. So
Right. And as we kind of kickstart this new year, you kickstarted with your first release with Warner, which was Last Time, or is Last Time. And what was it about this song in particular that you felt was like the appropriate like reintroduction for these new fans that are part of this label?
Yeah. Well, first off, it was, just having the hotline, there was a lot of songs to choose from. And this song, I think pretty clearly somehow it was written, I wrote it before the started, but like right before, it was like in February of last year. And it somehow encompasses like a lot of what people were feeling like during this year. But I was just writing it from like a personal, experience of like, dropping somebody off at the airport, that you don't know if you're ever going to see them again. It's just like, it's a very strange thing. And just traveling a lot, but it sort of encompassed a lot of feelings that I think that I was feeling this year. And it was, a lot of this music is just to express myself in however many ways I can do it and however many stories I can do it. And it really felt like a good story to start out with. And it has, some jangly acoustic guitars and then 4 on the floor. I mean, you can't really go wrong with that. So I figured it would be a good start, just like a good like lean in. And I think for the Lullaby Hotline, mixtape that's going to come out, it's sort of like a good, there's a lot of different stuff on there. They all sort of sound very like warbly, and there's some chances on there that I haven't taken in my previous music that's been released and stuff. So I thought it'd be like a good sort of like mixed bag of like, oh yeah, like this is sort of the stuff I do, but this is also the stuff that I've been doing and sending out. So yeah, that was basically the reason why I put that out first.
As you kind of touch on like the topic of like the airport, for example, like someone
Mm-hmm.
leaving, it's such a, like, I feel like it's interesting how you talk about such a serious kind of situation, but like when you're listening to the music, it's so dreamy and calming at the same time. Like, how do you how do you record that? How does that process, what does that process look like when you're creating it? Because I love how you play the difference between the two.
Yeah. I think I think in this, a lot of the saddest things that happen in people's lives, like in my life in particular, the first thing I try to do is find the sense of humor in it. And I think just with that intention, it makes things, like it's just calm. It's like if you mix like sadness and humor together, you just sort of get calm. It's like that sort of vibe together. And that was sort of what I did lyrically. And, for the production, I just wanted to match, what the lyrics were sort of saying. And the other thing about that song too is that was always like pretty strange to me is I'm like a big fan of like a big chorus and like, this is the chorus here. And like, this is like, what's that? And that song doesn't really have it, but for some reason, like it's still, you just find yourself listening to it over and over again, which is hopefully, I mean, that's how I feel. Hopefully other people feel it too, but yeah, it was just sort of like a very much like the lyrics and like those acoustic guitars and stuff and the strings, it just sort of, encapsulated this feeling of just like you said, calmness, which there's a lot of things that I wish I could do on purpose, Rob, but some things just forming together and starts becoming one thing. So if I knew how to do that every time, I'd do it on every song. So I feel lucky that it was just a good day that day. And yeah, that's sort of how that happens sometimes. So
so as you are getting ready to also release this mixtape, as you kind of mentioned, talk to me about these songs. Like, you said that you took chances with things that you've never done before. So how were you able to kind of take these chances but still keep it in a sense where like you listen to this mixtape and it's obviously your music, it's not some random style that's being put together into one piece of music?
Totally. Well, I think most of it, I guess there's two points there. It's most of it was just instinct because it had to be, because I had to make something every week. And a lot of times, like, as like I wasn't the best student in school. So a lot of times I'm waiting till the last minute. You know, it's supposed to come out every Sunday at 5 p.m. So there were some times I'd be like Sunday at 11 a.m. be like, I didn't even think about writing a song today. So I'm just going to do it and go for it. And so a lot of it is instinctual. And I think with the style, you know, to go further in that point, one of my favorite artists is a guy named John Prine. And he said, you know, if you make a mistake once, it's a mistake. But if you make a mistake twice, it's a style, you know? So it's like sort of this thing where I was like, oh, okay, you know, if I just keep using my instincts and sort of like, just go for it. Like some things will come out that are different than others, but they will still all feel the same because, you know, I'm either the one singing or it's just coming from a place of honesty. So somehow they all, you know, came together and, you know, picking the order and the track list was probably the most like time, it was the most like time to take up, basically. It took up the most time. That's what it is. Sorry, it's 11 a.m. You know, I'm still on my first cup of coffee. But it took up a lot of time because of how many songs there were. And like, okay, we basically had to decide what story do I want to tell, because there's a lot of sonic stories in each thing. And so I sort of found the one that was the right fit for me. And but yeah, there's just like a lot of weird sounds and there's a lot of familiar instruments and a lot of unfamiliar instruments, and just sort of like non-conventional, you know, stories that are just personal to me, but somehow, you know, broaden the spectrum of hopefully what other people feel as well.
Yeah. And you have a date for this also, right? For March. So as we
I think
as we lead to the we get closer to this as we get closer to this release, like, do you see more singles coming out in advance of this release?
Totally. We're going to have one more single come out in February. And then we're going to have just the Hotline come out in March. I think that, you know, it's a lot of people ask me what's the difference between like a mixtape and an album, you know, so to speak. But since a lot of these songs have basically been out already, and we're going to do some, you know, reworkings of old songs, you know, and the reworkings of the songs that, you know, have come out and some new ones as well. You know, there's some, you know, there's a basically like even on the mixtape, there's like a super awesome, like, you know, recorded, like very great studio recording that I like managed, you know, to figure out in my bedroom. And then the next like thing on the Hotline is a voice memo, you know, so it's just sort of different, like, you know, like styles of recordings and stuff. So that's why, you know, I didn't want to make like a huge, you know, like huge rollout and really, you know, go for it in that regard, because it is something that's just sort of off the cusp, you know, so we figured that 2 singles would be good, you know, fitting for it. And yeah, so trying to just get it all out before April, and then just keep putting music out and keep continuing. But the weird thing is that while all these songs come out, I'm still doing the Hotline. So it was like nice, you know, like I was like, oh, Friday's sick, like my song's coming out, this is great, I can like go on vacation for 24 hours, you know, and then just start get back into it. So you know, it's a double-edged sword in some like some scopes, but you know, it's like it's both sides of the handle. You know, it's still fun. It's like there's no sharp side to it. It's like really just like it's dictated. It can be anything. You know, there's been times where I like just send like a minute voice memo of just like a very short, like almost like the truest lullaby, you know. And then you know, one week I just did like a 5-minute like instrumental with some singing, or you know, it's just like you can really just do whatever you feel. So, but yeah, those are the singles. You know, the singles that are coming out. You know, we're figured, you know, why don't we just do 1 or 2. You know, get videos for them, and then, you know, just try to get this out as, you know, quick as possible.
Right. Now, I feel like you're, I mean, and I'm sure the Hotline has a lot to do with it, but like, I feel like your songwriting is already pretty incredible. And,
thank you.
But on top of that, like you had opportunities to kind of do sessions with other incredible writers as well. One of them that sticks out to me is FINNEAS. So like, I'm curious if like during those sessions, how did he kind of impact your songwriting? How do you feel he made your songwriting better than it already is?
Oh man, well he impacted it in so many ways. Just immediately, it was just cool to just get his perspective on things. Man, that dude is like the most mature, you know, 21-year-old to 22 now, I guess. But, you know, it was just, I mean, he's just been in it for so long, and his perspective on things is so like, you know, very, very loose. And it's just like, it's not too deep. And he's like, why not just do it all myself? You know, it's just like, at least it's going to be me making the mistakes, you know, if I'm making mistakes. And usually there is no mistakes. There's just different taste buds, you know, when it comes to music and sonic recordings and stuff. And he also introduced me to one of my favorite, you know, producers and writers who I've done a bunch of stuff with, named Ethan Gruska. He was just like,
Yes.
he was like, oh, who do you want to work with in LA at this point? Yeah, because, you know, obviously FINNEAS has worked with a million people. So he was like, who do you want to work with? You know? And I was just like, I love Ethan so much. You know, I've been trying to email him for years, you know, and he introduced me, and now me and Ethan are like, you know, worked on other people's projects together, you know, and it's so, it's very cool. So he helped me in a very much in an immediate space. And then also in like a future recording sense, you know. So I did my last EP with Ethan. So it's just, it's really, he's a very special person, and he deserves the world, and he's getting it. So
that's amazing, dude. Well, it's cool that, you know, you've already kind of stamped your name with some pretty big producers, pretty known producers as well. So that's awesome that like you get to kickstart this new relationship with Warner, and like your name is already kind of out there for others to kind of get ready and get creative with you as well.
Totally. I feel very lucky. You know, when I moved to LA, I knew zero people besides just the people who are now my managers. And I have to give them all the credit in the world for, you know, making like honest relationships. That's really what it is. Cause I feel like in sessions, it's very rarely about the song. It's just, you know, I'm always like pretty much the worst person in the room. So it's like the only thing that I can really do is just provide a smile and like a good hang. And I'm like, oh yeah, like, how are you feeling? Like, you know, so, but I wouldn't trade my space for, you know, sort of anything. Like I sort of love that role, and I love being able to, you know, now work on other people's projects and work on my own stuff. And, you know, from meeting all those people, you know, you sort of get a perspective where you're like, oh, you know, even if this song doesn't work out here, I know down the line it might. And also down the line, if I have another song that has this person's skill set in need of, you know, I can sort of just call them and be like, hey, do you want to just play piano on this thing that like I could use really quick? So it all feels really cool. And I feel extremely, extremely lucky to be able to do it.
That's amazing, dude. Well, congratulations with the signing, and congratulations with the upcoming release. And
yeah, thank you so much, Rob.
Thank you again for taking the time, dude.
Oh my God, please. Thank you for having me. This is so much fun. I appreciate it, man.